Y'all didn't have people figure it out. You can get comments, and then you can. How are you? Well, it certainly seems like you're eating.
Yeah. Okay.
Better than nothing. So I'll make like $10 today.
I think next year we're gonna get lunch back, Pilates style, maybe. It's expensive.
You guys are running a pretty good deficit. Did you switch to Are we at it yet? What's the city barbecue done for the year?
Yeah, but we're on like the super early.
Hey,
I'm butt dialed if you
OSU will be supplementing.
I'm contemplating going to go to Garrett Wilson's game, but like it's not.
They were gone by like.
There you go, man.
I don't care as long as I know.
I already read one, yes.
Hey, but no, I'm going to be today or tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone's got to pay that $500,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the butt down, bro.
As long as we know.
But the show's pretty good. I'm a hard drive. I mean, but you know what I mean.
So, yeah. Good. I gotta go, man. See you.
It's in Austin, but it's not.
I'll get the milk later too.
All right, we're gonna open it up with questions for Coach Day, and we'll start right here, front row. Dave.
Ryan, it's such an interesting dynamic with the coaching situation right now. Can you kind of clarify, just like right now that Urban's back, is it your role, is it as simple as you're in charge game days and he's in charge through the week? Can you kind of just break it down for us?
Yeah, Coach came back today, and we had a meeting early this morning. He's been meeting with some of the players, and so things are back to normal. And obviously he won't be there for game day, but everything else is back to normal.
You touched on the up-tempo offense after the game, that it might be a little too fast at times. But if it keeps the defense, if they're extremely uncomfortable, and you guys are maybe a little bit uncomfortable, is that kind of a good trade-off? Does that make any sense?
It was really hot. I mean, it really was humid, even in warm-ups and leading up to the game. So it took a toll on both sides. So then it kind of got a little sloppy there for a little while. But we did play some depth in there, and I think that was to our advantage in the game, is that we have, almost 10 deep at receiver. We're 3 deep at tight end, and we actually rolled the offensive line at a couple points there in the first half. So that was to our advantage.
Front row right there, Bill.
What was the reaction when Urban came back today? Was it strictly normal, or was there any?
No, I mean, a lot of the coaches really hadn't seen him much again, so a lot of embracing, and great to see you back. But when we got back to our meeting, we had our meeting, and it was kind of business as usual. Yeah.
How was his demeanor? How would you describe him today?
Coach is coach, and talked to the staff about moving forward, going to the game. We kind of debriefed on Saturday's game, and so now we're kind of working in game planning today.
Far left, Lori.
Coach, I've heard more than once that the biggest jump you'll ever see a player make is between their first game and their second. I wonder if you think the same is true of head coaches, and if so, where your biggest area of growth might be as a game day coach from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah, I mean, everything was for the first time on Saturday, and so there were a few things there that just made some notes on. A couple things, going from offense to special teams to defense, like even at the end of the half, being aware of the situation, making sure I was right there in case we need any timeouts, or communicating with Greg and the guys on special teams. So yeah, I mean, anytime you do something for a second time, it becomes easier and just more efficient.
How this week do you make sure that this isn't the equivalent of Urban writing the first 14 chapters of a book and then leaving you to write the big finish? How do you?
Well, I said it last week that so much of coaching is done during the week. So, today the game planning, the decisions that are made up to the game is really where most of the coaching is done. And then once we get on the field, the game plan's in, and now it's just a matter of calling the plays and kind of going from there. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of coach's back, and we're going with coach. And then once we get to the game, the decisions are almost made before we get there. So.
Front row left, Bill.
Ryan, I asked you a little bit about the tempo after the game, and I know it changes throughout depending on game situation and score, but coming into this season, was there any desire to want to play faster, at least at the beginning of the game, and is there anything about that suits Dwayne better?
Yeah, we talked about playing with tempo. We played with tempo last year as well. I think that our guys are suited for that. What Mick has done with those guys in the summer, getting them in shape, especially the guys up front, they run well, they're athletic, really good. So that was kind of our thought process going into the season, was that we wanted to play with some tempo. And also, for a young quarterback at times, you get a feel for, does it stress him out, or does he feel more comfortable in that environment? And we found that it does make him feel a little bit more comfortable. All of our quarterbacks, they like playing fast, and so in the no-huddle offense, I think they feel comfortable playing at that speed.
And then with you on the sideline and Kevin in the box and Urban not there to be part of the collaboration, just how did you feel the play calling went, and how did that maybe impact the speed at which you were able to play?
I thought it was pretty efficient. I mean, it seemed like we were moving at a good clip. We were snapping the ball pretty fast. I think guys were getting up and getting set. Talked to the receivers, the quarterbacks, and the guys carrying the ball to get the ball to the official a little bit better so we could be more efficient. We looked at that on film. Thought that was good. But the overall operation I thought was clean.
Second row left, Ari.
Ryan, when it comes to Jordan Fuller, do you have an update on just how his hamstring's doing? And when you guys looked at the tape of some of the defensive breakdowns in the secondary, what did you guys see there? Was it just young kids making mistakes, or were there easy fixes there?
Yeah, Greg's going to be coming up later, right? Yeah, so Greg can kind of address some of that stuff. But I think Jordan was a game-time decision coming down on the field. Sean and the guys were working him out to see if he could do it. We felt like it was better to hold him, so we made that decision. And he's getting treatment today and obviously this weekend. So looking forward to getting him in practice this week and going from there.
One quick follow-up about offense now. DeMario McCall is somebody that a lot of people are very interested in, and now I know that he was supposed to be a return man and he didn't really see the field much. What's his status in terms of, is it just too many people return, it's going to be hard for him to get on the field, or what's just your general viewpoint of DeMario McCall's role in this team?
Yeah, I mean, he's part of a group that's pretty deep right now. So he's working his way up. He had a nice return in the game. I think it was 26 yards. Really did a nice job there. Ball was high, nice and tight. So ball security. So anytime you put that on film, it's just going to give us more and more confidence to put him back out there.
Second row right, Tony.
You mentioned the receivers and the depth, and I know one guy will have a big game this week, might be a little quieter next week. When Terry McLaurin, one of your leaders on the team, as you've only known him for a couple of years, but he's come a long way, and he's worked so hard, and he has a game like he did last week. What does that do for you as a coach? How does that make you feel?
That was probably one of my, in terms of looking at the game and watching the film, something that was I was proud of him, because Terry has put a lot of work in here. He's a captain. He's one of our best practice players. Practices really hard. He blocks really, really well. Does all those things. And so, like you said, there's been times in his career where it's faith without results, where just keep running the route, Terry. The ball's going to find you. Just keep running the route, and it did. And so, really happy for him. Well deserved. And I think that's a start to a great year for him.
What does it say about that group where they can go a game without a catch, but nobody seems to mind?
Yeah, it says a lot about that room and the leadership in that room. I think sometimes as receivers you can get selfish. I don't think that's a selfish group. I think they pull for each other, and they know that if we are playing fast and we are playing depth, that they need each other. And so I think they lean on each other, and so it does say a lot about that group.
Front row left, Mitch.
Ryan, obviously Mike Weber had a great day. Were you happy looking back on it, the way that those guys, Weber and JK, were rotating, and is that what we're likely to see this week?
It is. Yeah, kind of like we talked about going in. I keep saying it's a two-headed monster. You got two guys going there that are really, really talented. And sometimes it is the way that the play was blocked. Where we got Mike to the safety a couple of times, but Mike, made those plays count. He made those safeties miss on several occasions, and so he was run downhill. But J.K. played well as well, and so we'll continue with that kind of rotation. And they need each other. Like we said, same thing when you are playing. I think we had 91 plays to film. I don't know how many of those with penalties, but it was high. You need to play depth. And then you saw Brian and Master get in there and also run the ball when they had a chance as well. So good group as well.
Fourth row left, Dan.
Right. Obviously a little bit of a unique situation you've taken over on the weekend. When exactly do you get the reins back for Saturday or Friday night or whenever? And are you doing anything different to try to make sure that transition goes smoothly?
No, we're going to kind of just pick it up from where it was when Coach was here. Coach, he'll be with the team on Friday. He can't be with them on Saturday. But other than that, we'll keep the routine, which is what we did last week. We did everything we would do normally, and now it's just great to have Coach back so we can keep this thing rolling.
Did he beat everybody to the office this morning, and how eager was he to get in?
I don't know. Yeah, I know he was excited to get back here.
Third row left, Dan.
Ryan, now that you have a game as a head coach under your belt, do you feel like as you go into these meetings with Coach Meyer, with the rest of the coaches on staff, that you can take a little more influence, or that maybe you have a little bit different input than you had before?
No, I mean, I think it's been a group effort the whole time, and I've referred to these guys and everybody on this staff, like I've said a million times, how unbelievable this coaching staff is, and it's been a group effort all along. So, I don't think I've done anything more than what's required in this situation. So now we have Coach back, kind of keep that going. It's a group effort as we move forward. I also think that when you look at our staff, the way that our staff is built, on offense, it's Kevin and I working together. And then we have, Greg, Tony, Brian, and the whole offensive staff. It is a collaborative effort. And, we take a lot of pride in that. Everybody has a certain area that they work on. So somebody might have third down, somebody might have short yardage, somebody has the run game first and second down. And so everybody adds that into the game plan, and that's what you see on Saturday.
Did Coach Meyer give you an assessment on your performance this morning?
I think the comment he made was, you only had to punt once, huh? And I said, yeah. So that's a pretty good day. I said, yeah. So.
All right, Austin.
Ryan, one of the first things that Dwayne said when he came out on Saturday was talking about the interception, not the good stuff that happened. I imagine as a coach, that's kind of what you'd rather hear, that they're looking at the mistakes, not what they did well. And when you guys look at that play in particular, or maybe some others for Saturday, where do you see room for him to grow?
Well, I think what happens is as you step up, into the conference and some of the games get a little tighter, the decisions that you make become more and more consequential. And so he needs to understand that. We all do. It wasn't just the throw either. There was a little bit of breakdown up front. He got forced to throw the ball a little bit sooner than he should have. And so, that's how you can lose a game. And so we have to understand that, as a whole offense, one play can ruin your whole afternoon. And we have to be aware of that so that as the games get closer and closer, we're on top of that and we're, making good decisions to manage the game. One thing I do want to say about that interception, though, that was really remarkable was the effort on that play to tackle the ball carrier. It was a crazy play, and the ball squirted out. And two guys in particular, if you go back and watch the film, that ended up getting them down was Benjamin Victor and then Isaiah Prince. And to see 59 running the length of the field to make that tackle was really amazing. Wasn't a fun play to watch. It was a mess, but the effort on that play to get him down was remarkable.
When it comes to getting Tate involved, was that, when he came in that first time, was that always part of the plan? Or can you take me through just how you approach maybe not disrupting the offense, getting Tate involved, how that plan will go moving forward?
I think it'll change as we go into each week, and what we see with the defense. We want to kind of get him in the game. How it plays out, can't really predict how that's going to work, but we definitely want to get him in the game and let him go play.
Front row left, Doug.
Ryan, just to clarify, did you move your stuff out of Urban's office last night or this morning?
I think you know the answer to that.
Dwayne, it seems like Dwayne throws in rhythm. It's middle of the field, those intermediate throws. Just how comfortable is he making those throws, and how good is he at sort of just evaluating, this is where this should go, my guy's there, let's do it?
Yeah, the ball comes out of his hand quick, as you can see, and he does. He's a rhythm passer. But so much of that has to go with the protection. When he has a nice pocket and the guys are doing a good job in protection, the spacing is right, the separation with the receivers is right, then that's when you can see we get into a rhythm, we get into a tempo. That part's good. If there's a breakdown anywhere along the line, that's where you can disrupt a passing game. So we spent a lot of time talking about that in our offensive line, and Coach Studd does a great job in protection. We have to block some really good guys on defense every day, so that helps us in these situations. But it is a collaborative effort. He does get the ball out quickly though, and he's accurate when he throws it.
Why didn't he throw the ball 50 yards down the field more?
Why what?
Why didn't he just throw 50-yard deep balls every play? He's got a big arm. Why aren't you guys just calling shots after shot after shot after shot?
Well, first off, if based on what the defense is giving you, so if that corner's playing really, really soft and they're giving you stuff underneath because maybe they're respecting our speed, then you have to take the stuff that's underneath. Secondly, when you're playing fast, if you run a guy all the way down the field and possibly miss the throw, it takes a long time for him to get all the way back. So that all that stuff goes into consideration. But you have to take what the defense is giving you. You can't force things down the field. And that's, some young guys want to do that. They want to take their shots. They get hungry. They want to take a shot down the field. Well, if there's a safety sitting in the middle of the field at 25 yards, you can't throw a post. And so that's all part of maturing.
Coach, Coach Meyer give you any advice on what he thinks you could do better this Saturday? And separately, completely non sequitur, any reaction to Joe Burrow's first game and some of the outpouring support he got from some of his former teammates?
Really happy for Joe. Texted Joe and his parents just to let him know how much I was happy for him to see him out there playing, and really happy for he and his family. And it was great to see him get a win. I did see him, I don't know what happened, but in the scuffle before the game and kind of the mix, which didn't surprise me. He's a competitive guy, and so it was funny seeing him out there. And to your other question, no, there really wasn't much conversation about that with Coach.
Front row middle, Tim.
Follow up on Bill's question about tempo. I know Saturday you mentioned the 50-50 split for J.K. Mike. How necessary is that to make sure that you don't need to pull one of those guys out for a series because you want to keep that tempo? Because I think it was only one drive when you had the first team in that you switched in between from one back to another. Do you need those guys to go that full drive to have that tempo going?
It's a good question. We actually talked about that in meetings. Sometimes when you go with a series that there's 4 plays, they're just rolling. We had a couple of those drives. But then if it gets into the 6, 7, 8, 9 play range, it also depends on what he's involved in. If he just had a run for 10, then he kind of turns around and runs the ball over here for another 10, and then now you get to play 4 and 5, and he starts to show fatigue, then that might be a time to get him out. And so we're communicating all that on the headset, talking about when we can take a guy in and take a guy out. Because the other part is when you sub, then the referees will slow you down. When you don't sub, then we can go as fast as they put the ball down, and the referee gets out of the way. But if we sub, then they'll slow the game down. So all those decisions come into play during the game.
Second start for a quarterback is always interesting because now there's a full amount of game film on him. As a coach and someone who obviously works specifically with quarterbacks, how do you manage that sort of chess match, knowing that now defenses have a little bit more knowledge of Dwayne, and how do you have to mask tendencies and just continue to evolve to make sure they're not keying on anything you guys were doing on Saturday?
I think you talk about it. I think that you try to figure out early on what they're doing. Like we were saying going into the game last week, we had to figure out in the first quarter what they were doing. And then also on third down, they'll have something cooked up on third down. So just making the quarterback aware that there may be something new. And if there is, and maybe, we weren't prepared for it, and it's something that's catching us off guard, the first time you see it, it can't ruin the game. You check the ball down, maybe we have to punt. We get on the sideline, we make the in-game adjustment and get it fixed.
Second row left, Tim.
Chris Olave is a guy who is maybe a little bit under the radar in recruiting, but he's clearly made an impression on the staff and some of his teammates. So how has he been able to do that, and what kind of role can he have this year?
Yeah, Chris, I was fortunate enough to recruit Chris. I was out recruiting a quarterback out in California, and they said, we had this great receiver here who didn't play his junior year, and so we watched him play his senior year and really just tore it up the first few games, and we fell in love with him. Comes from a really good family, sport athlete, and we knew right when he got here that he was special. He's got really good speed, great hand-eye coordination, and so his work ethic to go along with that has been excellent. And I think he's got great guys in a room to follow. I mean, when you're sitting right next to Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon and Terry McLaurin every day watching the way they go about their business, then it gives you a great role model moving forward. So proud of where he is, and I think he's, you'll see him at some point have an impact on the season.
Front row right, Tim.
Yeah, Ryan, just as you look back on Saturday, what is the biggest thing you learned as a head coach in game? What is that thing that just sticks with you right now that you didn't know 48 hours ago?
I don't know if there's one thing. I think that, again, like I was saying before, being aware of everything that's going on. So, like, for instance, if we're trying to make an adjustment on offense and maybe the defense needs a timeout, the coach has to call the timeout. So being available to have communication with special teams, being available to have communication with the defense. Are we looking to go after a punt? Are we not looking to go after a punt? Are we going to return it? Those type of things while we're trying to make adjustments on the sideline with the offensive line, running backs, quarterbacks, and such. So I think that whole thing was probably the biggest thing that kind of caught me a little bit. And, so you learn from it and we better this weekend.
What did you see? Did you see anything that told you Oregon State was respecting the passing game more than maybe other defenses previously, or in different ways? Meaning with Dwayne back there, with a better gun for want of another term than JT had. I mean,
No.
Did you see anything that was like?
I know you're asking. Yeah, you're saying that was it softer coverage or the box less loaded? No, didn't see that. Now we did come out early and throw the ball a little bit, so I think that may have affected it. But then you got to still deal with Mike and you got to deal with J.K. So it was soft. The corners were soft. There wasn't as much challenge on the line of scrimmage. Then that may also be the respect for our receivers. But we didn't see anything there that caught us as unusual.
And who, God forbid, something happened to it, Dwayne or Tate. Who's your third quarterback now?
Well, we have three guys there. Matt Baldwin is this week will start doing some more. So we'll see how he does this week. He's getting closer. Chris Chugnoff is a graduate transfer who just kind of showed up. He's kind of like a guy who got signed off of waivers. And he's here, but he just got here, so he's learning the offense, and so we'll see how he does this week. And then Corey Curtis, was our third string quarterback in preseason camp. So all three of those guys are kind of helping out a little bit. They're all working to improve, and I think as the next couple of weeks progress, we'll have a better idea who that guy is.
One last question. When Urban showed up today, was it obvious in meetings and stuff that he didn't just sit around for a month? I mean, could you tell he was up on Rutgers, up on maybe Texas Christian? What was the sense you got of him and the homework he did in his off time?
Oh yeah, no, Coach is right in tune with everything that was going on. Right from the start today.
We've got time for one more question. Back row middle, Murph.
Kind of following up on Bill's question about the deep passes. Was it a plan to attack deep given Wayne's arm, or do you just kind of have to go into a game, like you said, take what the defense gives you and approach it that way?
Yeah, I mean, we like we said, we want to challenge people horizontally. So, like, some of the bubble passes that we got out to Paris, and then, some of the speed sweep that you saw him kind of going sideways, that was kind of our way to stretch it horizontally. And then we want to stretch it vertically, and that's with the shots down the field. But again, if they're playing soft, then you can't force it. You can't force the action. You got to keep us in rhythm. And when you're playing fast, if you play in rhythm and guys are softer and you take the underneath stuff, we called some plays that in certain coverages would dictate throwing a post or a seam or down the field. But because the coverage was softer, you saw us come underneath and get some completions.
Just because we haven't seen it, how have you liked Dwayne's deep ball throwing in terms of, I know you guys track the completions and whatnot, and that's been a big thing. How has he done with that?
He's been good. Yeah, he's been good. Yeah, practice, and we work on it a lot. And the receivers do a good job of tracking it. So, we'll see the more we do that in the games, then we'll kind of see where it's at.
Coach, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
no problem.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
We'll have Coach Schiano here in a second there, folks.
Greg, after you reviewed the film, what disappointed you most about your defense?
Well, there's a lot of good stuff on the tape, so I wasn't disappointed other than there were some plays that I was disappointed in. There was actually 82% of the offense came on 7 plays, 82% of their production. We can't allow that. You know, I have to go back a long time to remember 2 long runs like that, not only here but anywhere. That's it's unacceptable. We made a small error on the 1 long touchdown pass, a couple small errors, but when you're playing RPOs and people are spreading you out sideline to sideline, you make a mistake, they can make you pay. So good lessons to be learned. It's not acceptable performance, but there was a lot of good things too. You know, 2 sudden changes, and you make them attempt a field goal on both of them. They made one, they missed one. You know, that's your goal when you go out after a sudden change on the plus 25 or in. Can you make them attempt a field goal? They did it both times. I thought that was excellent. Scoring on defense, that's one of our goals. You score a touchdown on defense, and it really is the way we like to play football around here. You know, we had a great punt, 60-something yards, pinned them back, and then had an opportunity to fortunately score as a defense there on the sack fumble. So there are a lot of good things. We got to play a ton of people. As I said to you early on, we have a young group, 4 or 5 of those guys, that was their first significant action. I think we learned a lot. Now, you know, always people say between week 1 and week 2 is when you make your largest improvement. I think when you're a young unit, that even multiplies. So we need to improve, that's for sure. That's not what we want to be out there, but the opportunity's there.
You mentioned some of the young guys that played well. Just real quick, Tommy Togiai looked like he played well. Maybe some of the other, is that correct? And maybe some of the other first guys that flashed.
Well, yeah, we did. We played a lot of guys, so young guys got some opportunities. I thought Tommy did. He played strong. He is strong. I thought Tyler Friday did his job. Nothing spectacular, but I always look at young guys when you watch them on tape. Do they look like they belong? That to me is the measuring stick. Tariq Smith got in there early and played, and I thought did a good job. And I'll probably leave somebody out, but you know, it's good to get them out there playing. That's the benefit of getting a big lead like that. We played, I don't know how many defensive line. We may have played all 14 guys that were, maybe more than that. 16 guys played on the defensive line, which is always a positive.
4th row, Andrew?
How do you scheme against a guy who's only made 1 collegiate start?
Well, you know, a lot of times you hear that question about the individual, the quarterback per se. It more than that is what does it allow their offensive coordinator to do? Because as a coach, you have to scheme against the plays that all 11 guys are going to do. You know, I'm familiar with the quarterback because he's a Jersey kid, and I knew him back when, and then obviously through recruiting, he is a big, strong arm drop back passer with good mobility. He's not a stiff back there, so you have to be ready to be able to have ways to get him down when he does move. So it'll be interesting. You know, Coach McNulty and I go back a long way. He was on my staff twice, once at Rutgers, where he was my offensive coordinator, and then once at Tampa, where he coached the quarterback. So he's familiar with us and defensively, and we're familiar with him. Some of that can be an issue. Like, he knows the verbiage, and I'm sure he's going to tell his players that. So we'll have to change some of the words we use out on the field, some of the calls, so they're not aware exactly what's happening.
Front row right, Bill?
Could you assess the play of the safeties? Obviously, you didn't have Jordan. Do you expect him back, and could you assess the way that Jocelyn and Isaiah played?
Yeah. First, we hope to have Jordan back. That was a game time decision. There was a lot of good things they did, and there was a lot of learning that they can take from that tape and that performance, which is good because they're going to have to. I mean, anytime you start 2 guys at the same position, which is the middle of your, going into the game, we knew we were going to have a brand new Mike linebacker and 2 brand new safeties. It's like starting a new catcher and a new shortstop and a new pitcher in baseball right up the middle. So we knew that there could be some growing pains there. Overall, I thought they were solid, made some mistakes, but now at least we have a leaping off point. Now we got to go and see how fast we can ascend. And if we get Jordan back, that certainly makes a big difference.
And just about Urban Meyer coming back today, what was it like in the room when he did return?
It was good. Yeah, excited to have him back. Everybody is. Coach is very focused guy, as you know, and we hit it running, get back to it.
Front row left, Bill.
Greg, what's the plan with Tough now moving forward since he was able to get in? And when you have young guys at linebacker, how can a presence like Tough maybe help settle things down a bit for those young guys who are experiencing new things?
Well, you saw Tough, I think he had 10 plays, and that was kind of his pitch count. And it's all part of his recovery. There's different stages, right? He went through the rehab, then he went through independent running and change of direction, then he went into some individual technique work, then into some team stuff. And part of that is going and playing live football, and he did that for 10 plays. So we look for that to increase. How much, we'll work with our training staff and our medical staff to figure out what's optimal. I thought that Barron did a nice job in there. So as we progress, they're both going to play. They're both really good football players. How much, you kind of going to see how the week goes. We'll up his, not only will we up his, his repetitions in the game, we'll do that in practice as well. And we've been fortunate. There's been 0 setbacks so far, but you never know.
And a different topic. I think Dwayne was an 8th grader in South Brunswick when you were at Rutgers. Were you familiar with him at all? And I know he's close with Mo Sadoo, and he's talked about how much he liked the program when you were coaching there. Do you guys talk about that at all? Sort of when you had it rolling and he was a kid and he was watching you guys play?
Sure. We have a connection. I remember when I started here at Ohio State, he sent me and we were recruiting him. His dad sent me the picture of he and I at camp together. He came to our camp. And as you know, Mo is very close to Mo. So, yeah, there is definitely a connection with Muhammad, his family. A lot of people, he grew up right across the river from Rutgers, so he's a local guy. So we know a lot of the same people. But great to see him, have the kind of performance he did.
Did you ever think maybe if you were still there, he would end up being the quarterback at Rutgers someday?
No, I haven't thought of that. But I remember he was in our little guys' camp, and so were my twins. And I remember them coming down to my office. He was playing wideout in the pickup 7-on-7 games. He says, there's one kid up there, number 7. We can't cover. Nobody can cover him. So it was kind of prophetic.
Second row left, Ari.
You touched a little bit about how Barron played. I think that, as Tough continues to recover, I think that people have this vision that he's going to be the guy that steps in and kind of really takes a big role in this team. Can you be a little bit more specific about what you saw out of him? And do you think that he played well enough to continue with that role moving forward?
How Barron played? Like I said last week, I think we have more than 3 linebackers that should play. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna try to work those guys in the lineup. Barron's one of those guys. As Tough comes back, I can see them ham and egging it. There's certain things that each of them do well right now, and that's our job. And that's not the only linebacker position where we need to do that. I think we have some other guys that can play as well. Dante Booker's coming back from his injury. How does he fit into playing that? Justin Hilliard. I think Justin is playing at a high level. So it's a good. I don't call it a problem. A good situation to have, and we just got to figure out the optimal way to get the best performance from everyone. And you saw a little bit in packages. In third down packages, who goes in? We were just talking about that this morning. How do we get everybody on the field and get everybody a role? Because I think that's important. Guys. I know this for a fact. You prepare better when you can kind of visualize what your role's going to be. The role may change second play of the game, but I think it helps you all week long. And now that we're into game weeks, they really go fast. Saturday turns into Saturday really quickly.
Far left, Lori.
Coach, I know you personally have a soft spot for Rutgers in your heart, but what's the value to the league to having an improved Rutgers? I mean, some people would say that having a top-heavy league, you can still get a team to the national championship. So what's the value of having teams like Rutgers and Minnesota and teams that seem to be on the upswing? What's the value to having them play well?
Well, I think general terms, the more competitive teams you have, the better the league, right? So that's general terms. I think Rutgers specifically, its location is key, right? It is right across the river from New York City. It brings a huge market with it, and when Rutgers is doing well, that market gets behind. It's like so many urban areas, though. When you're winning, you're the hot thing. People want to be there. I can remember when we started winning. Now all of a sudden the Giants are on our sideline, and the Jets and pro baseball players. Well, when you're not winning, they're not there. They're not going to be seen in an event that's not an event. So when that gets good, I think that's good for the league to get that East Coast, that far East Coast going is nothing but good for the league.
I hate to be stupid, but I still don't understand the value of balance. Because if you had a league that was Ohio State or Alabama, and then all the rest of the teams were podunk you, it would still be a great team worthy of a national championship. So what's the value of having week in and week out a really tough opponent?
Well, a couple things. One, if you're a fan, right, of a league or a conference, you love to see competitive games. That, at least I do as a fan of other sports, and this sport. I mean, I love going home and watching college football when we're done. But I think also, the old saying, iron sharpens iron. And when you play in a league that every week you better buckle it up or you're going to get beat, it makes you better. It improves you as a whole organization.
Taylor?
Yeah, Greg, just kind of going off of that, obviously, is there any sentiment or anything that crops up whenever you guys play Rutgers with your connection, and does that factor into game week at all? Or, do you have somewhat of a relationship with Rutgers still? Do you talk to Chris and any of those guys?
Sure. As far as it applies to game week, there's no factor. I mean, you're going to prepare. When you're a coach at Ohio State, it's a very high standard, and you're going to do everything in your power to meet that standard. As far as is it sentimental, sure it is. I mean, we built that program, and really, to come back to your question, from 2002 on, that was always my goal. We got to get Rutgers into the Big Ten. I believe that's where it belonged, the kind of academic institution it is, land-grant institution. So I'm really proud that Rutgers is in the Big Ten. And so when we get ready to play, there are still people I know there. Coach Ash and I are friends. And sure, when you built something, you never forget about it. But now it's our job to beat them. And my job is to make sure that the defense plays the way they're capable of playing against them. And they're better. I mean, you look at the offense, we're game planning as we speak. They're a much better team, and I think Coach McNulty was a great acquisition. Chris had the ability to get Coach and to be his offensive coordinator, and I really think what they're doing, it gives us challenges.
And then obviously, you got a big game coming up next week against TCU down in Texas. I know you guys like to focus on one game at a time, but maybe just to phrase it this way: what's the biggest couple of things you would like to see change on the defensive side of the football this week versus Rutgers, especially with a big game like that down in Texas looming next week?
Well, first, I know people say coaches, they just like to say, I mean, we really do that because coaches as a group, it's all about here. Certainly as the leader, you have to have some plans of what is going on in the background because you're always a week ahead. But all our focus is on one team, and that's the team we're playing that week. But what we need to see get better on defense is there's plenty of that. I think anytime you miss any tackles, and that's expected a little bit in the first game, but we really need to work on our angles of entry into our tackles because that was an issue. There were some issues in the past game. We had 2 DPIs called on us, defensive pass interference, which, I'm not crazy. I'm not a lunatic when we get a DPI. That happens. You're covering guys that, are on scholarship too, and they're good players. But if they're avoidable, those are the ones that really bother you. Some are unavoidable. You're being aggressive, go make a play, and you get a flag thrown, that happens. So we need to make sure that gets cleaned up. And then we had, too many big plays. It's okay if a guy makes a mistake or a guy misses a tackle, but we should have overlap. We should have other guys there to get them down. So if it's a 16, 18-yard play, that's fine. Can't be an 80-yard play. That you don't live very long as a good defense if you're giving up 80-yard plays.
Far left, Dan?
Did Urban tell you guys at all how he spent his past 3 weeks, especially this Saturday afternoon?
No. We like I said earlier, we kind of got right down to business. And, today's a big day as a coach. Monday's your big game planning day, and I think Coach has been very sensitive to that. We got together, we staff met, and it wasn't very long, and then get in there and get to work on the game plans.
And then Ryan said that maybe the biggest area where he learned or the challenge he had in his first game as a head coach was balancing all 3 phases while making adjustments on offense. How, from your perspective, did he juggle those things, and did you give him any pointers on that?
I thought Ryan did an excellent job, not only on game day, but as I've said last week, leading up to everything that he, all the decisions he had to make and the leadership he provided. But yeah, game day, when you're calling the game as a head coach is different than when you're not. And I've done both. Because, you're ultimately responsible for the call that goes in a timely fashion, but you're also responsible for game management and keeping an eye on the other side of the ball in the kicking game. So I'm sure his plate was full, but he did a great job.
From our right, Austin.
Greg, with the pass rush that you guys have, I know Saturday's just one game. Do you anticipate that some of the screens and the quick throws and misdirection, that's just going to be how teams decide to attack you and negate that? And how do you adjust to that?
Well, without a doubt, it will be. Some of those screens, we didn't exactly do things the way we want them done, so we have to improve and get that done. The risk you have to always be careful when you're evaluating your performance. Did we do what we set out to do schematically and from a technique standpoint? If we didn't, it didn't work, then we got to find a new way to do it. If we didn't, then let's go do what we said we were going to do and then evaluate it. There's a little bit of that. We need to make sure that we're on point with our details. I think some of it, again, like I said, first game uneasiness for some guys, but it'll be an opportunity this week because they'd screen in every way that we saw Saturday. This team did it to their opponent last Saturday, so we know they have them all, and I'm sure they have a few we haven't seen.
How many of those teachable moments then do you expect from a team or a first-time guy on a Saturday? How much do you have to live with as a coach when you see him go out there and do it?
Not as many as we had. Yeah, that's not to me acceptable. The way, and it all comes back to coaching. We have to limit those. We had too many.
Time for just a couple more. Front row, Tim.
Yeah, Greg, what did y'all miss with Jordan Fuller not being there? Obviously, he was elected captain. I think he does a lot of calls or whatever you want to call it. What do you think y'all missed in the secondary with like 3 young starters back there, et cetera, making adjustments, et cetera, as you analyze the video?
We did a pretty good job with the adjustments. I think one thing Jordan gives you is kind of a sweeper back there, an insurance policy. He's a very good tackler in space. And again, I don't know if he's there. Do we get some of those plays? I don't know. I mean, you can't live in the speculative world, but I like our odds with him. He's an experienced player who's one of the best in the country at what he does. So certainly you miss a guy of that caliber when he's not playing.
Up front, it seemed like the front had a pretty good day, but what did you see? Like Nick was saying, there were some things, there were some mistakes made, et cetera, by the guys up front. But what did you see that, for them in particular, it needs to get cleaned up?
Well, I think, Nick and Draymond played very, very well. And when you look at their performance, it was kind of off the charts, right? Some of the other things, so much of what football is today with all the shotgun and the ride and read stuff, it's option football. And when you don't take care of your responsibility, one of those options pops free. We had that a couple times. So we need to clean that up. And obviously the offsides penalties are frustrating, right? When you jump off sides and give them a free play. And if you remember, one of those offsides, actually 2 of those offsides were also DPIs. And what most offenses have built right into their offense, it doesn't matter what the play is, if you clearly feel, see, hear the offsides, it's an automatic deep shot. So, you don't need extra deep shots, that's for sure. So we need to do a little better job of that.
And let's say, how do you think Kendall and Okuda played Saturday? I mean, what's your Kendall, Sheffield, and Okuda?
Yeah, I think they played solid. They didn't have a ton of opportunities. The one was kind of a freakish one on Kendall, that kind of jump ball, underthrown deal. Certainly you'd like to come down with that, but it didn't happen. That happens in the game. And those DPIs on Jeff, they're real close calls. But like I told them, if you put yourself in the shoes of that back judge or that side judge there that's watching, you might call it too. So if our saying around here is if they throw the flag, it's a penalty. It doesn't matter what you think. You don't get a vote in that one. So,
Pete Werner, last thing, you were praising him a little bit last week and stuff, but did he live up to your expectations? Obviously, he caused the fumble that was the touchdown, et cetera. What did you see out of him?
I thought Pete played well, very promising. Did he make mistakes? Sure, everybody did, including yours truly. But I thought Pete played at a high level of speed and plays the game with great passion and really is a contact player. He's going to hit you. So bright future for him. We're looking forward to seeing him get better and better.
And last set of questions, front row left. Doug?
What did Okuda do exactly on the 2 pass interferences? How close was he to playing that right? And
Well, when you look at pass interference, what I try to explain to the corners is if you restrict them, now you give the official a chance to make the call. And he just had his arm kind of barred. It's called an arm bar. We don't teach that here. But a lot of guys do it naturally, right? It's just, I want to make sure it's kind of like a safety belt. And we just got to just keep running and make the play. There's one play, if you freeze it, you'd think Okuda was the wide receiver. He was on the outside, and the receiver was trying to play, so he didn't intercept it. But he got called because he put his arm out. So little things like that we have to work on. But I thought he was in really good position on both plays. Just got to avoid that penalty.
we know you guys have done the 3-corner rotation typically here. Are you good with that? Those 3 guys, is that working? That's what you're going to continue with?
Yeah, I think it is. I think we actually have, I think Sean Wade got in there and did a nice job as well. And, Marcus Williamson, he was a little bumped up during camp, so didn't get all the reps he needs. So I think we have some depth there. So it may be more than 3 that we play, but certainly 3. And then the nickel position is a corner man position as well.
And so that's what nickel, you're usually putting the top 3 corners out there, right? That's your nickel look at the moment?
Yeah, and we were talking today, there may be some different mixes and matches we want to do, to give everybody a role, something that they can focus on and know they're going to get in the game. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg.